Hi there. Thank you for joining me. This is Brooke from the Wild Temple School, and I'm actually currently at a saffron farm. My husband decided to surprise me and take me on a little vacation before my teacher trainings begin. So I was just able to walk literally fields of irrigated rows of saffron. And oh my goodness, I know some of you who are joining know my love for plants. This is a whole new experience. I've never before ever been in fields of saffron. And so I think it's really auspicious with what today and this webinar I wish to bring forward to you today. I think it all kind of ties in because I was just sitting here waiting to start the video and was contemplating on why I was doing these webinars. And this is my second one. I just did one earlier this week. And I think the impetus was just really to help bring a window into where I believe yoga can truly offer us as humans power, insight, clarity, and tools to truly meet our times. And so this is the title that I'm leaning into for these webinars are Yoga to Meet the Challenges of Today. And then I realized, wow, this is a really kind of challenging topic to talk about because a lot of these things are really experiential. You have to feel them in your body to really understand their wisdom and to know that they're not just jargon. It's not just conversation. I'm not just throwing more talk at you, but these are practices that work when you apply them. And so I will do my best to kind of give you an overview and then a little deeper of a window with maybe some hopefully practical tools you can take home. So just to recap from last webinar, I talked a little bit about how important having a home yoga practice is, and really the best way that we can start to develop really strong home practices are to do teacher trainings or deep dive yoga trainings or yoga immersions, whatever they're called. It's some kind of format that you adhere to a system to a degree, so you're getting depth instead of width. We're kind of the society of piecemealing things together from YouTube videos and this workshop and that workshop. But if you could actually take whatever it is that you're learning and go deep with it, what you find with yoga is that it always begins with the body. It always begins with learning about the musculoskeletal system. A good yoga training should, right? Good studies of yoga should, because yoga believes in we need to meet people where they're at to then bring them into a better place. And so we're really at our physicality. We are so in tune with, hopefully, or out of tune with, and that's what's creating the issues, right? Our physical body. And so yoga brings us into, the asana brings us into really learning how to understand how our body works, the physiology, that's deeper in besides just how the muscles and the bones move and work. And then ideally it's being able to start to adapt and refine these skills to make them meet your needs and your body. Unfortunately, there is a lot out there with what I'm seeing and what I've experienced with yoga trainings where it's a lot of alignment focused yoga, and sometimes that alignment is they're trying to put it on as a one size fits all, and it doesn't really fit all. In truth, all of our bodies are different. A lot of us have completely different histories than the other person, so how can we have this one size fits all approach? However, it's nice to learn the techniques and then to practice them, again, to weed out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what works for another, what doesn't work for them. But still you're building your toolkit, right? You're building your skill box. Now, when we cultivate that home practice, we are stepping into the realms of, right, physical body, because we've learned this from our teacher trainings or deep dive yoga immersions. And then we start to get into something a little more deep, something deeper than the common everyday offering of what yoga brings. And this is getting into spirit. It's getting into breath. It's getting into the more subtle energies of where yoga can truly bring us. And this is actually the key. This is I would say the secrets of the tantrics is really then working with prana and energy. But just to backtrack a little bit, the webinar that I did last a few days ago was really this: if you have the training and the skill to start to bring a home practice into your life, it offers you four really, really strong things. One is self-care, and we all need self-care, right? We all need to figure out the rhythms that work for us, the moments in the day where we can be replenished, so we're not just giving and giving and giving. And that yogic time can actually be the fodder for you to fill yourself and be able to give yourself the fuel so that you have the capacity to raise your children, or to meet the demands of your job, or to be a wonderful lover to your partner and to yourself, right? So self-care is different than healing, and yoga offers that as well. I mean, it can obviously be the same or very similar, support healing, but when we have a home practice, we can actually start to work on our own traumas and our own places within that feel broken or not healed, the old wounds, the undigested wounds. And so giving yourself that time to really practice yoga asana, what's happening is you're getting a moment to release these issues from your tissues, release the memory, the storage that's being held in the musculature when you do the twists, when you do the forward folds or back bends, and you send the breath to these areas. You're enabling your own body this chance to be able to revisit the feelings that may have been smothered and are being kind of festering within if you don't give yourself the time to bring them up, feel them for a moment, and release them. So having a home practice does offer you this ability to really be able to heal yourself. And then a third means that I feel yogic home practices are really helpful for meeting our challenges of today is that they help us to become more contemplative, where yoga asana then leans into supporting the mind. And we can start to weed out again, what is the old stuff? What are those old loops of thinking, of feeling, of being in a way that doesn't serve us anymore? Because we are machines of habit. We can absolutely get in these grooves of just doing and doing and doing, and we're not really aware of that, that unhealthy habit until we get smacked in the face, or it's just so painful that we've had enough, that we want something different. So having a home practice, you start to see where your mind is going, how your mind has been in those loops, and you can start to dissect in meditation, in yoga asana, even in pranayama, especially in mantra. If you do mantra japa, you can start to dissect and weed what serves you, the useful thoughts, the positive ones, the ones that help you grow and evolve, to the ones that do not. And for those of you who don't know what mantra is and mantra japa is, it's a meditation on a sound vibration. And that sound vibration helps you to focus your mind in a way that you stop the mind's repetitive thoughts from looping. So it's like a tool for the mind. That's a very simple way to say what is mantra japa. And then I'll say the fourth one, though, for our seminar or our webinar last time, in the challenges that we have today and how yoga can help us meet them, is that of conscious evolution. So when we do develop a home practice and we get really skilled at being able to organize the body in a complete way where we feel good in our body, musculoskeletally, and then we're moving deeper into the spiritual energy and energy and prana in general, and we start to unlock these places that are the old memories, the stories, we're healing, we're nourishing with our self-care, and we are weeding out those old thoughts. What happens is you start to pierce into this new reality. You pierce into this wholeness, or the eternal self that I know you've heard that language, like, our pure consciousness, our source consciousness, living wisdom, higher reality, all of these things that maybe you haven't experienced yet in yoga. Maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you want that more and more, right? Because we know the more we tap into that place, that space, it's a presence that feels peaceful. It's a presence that feels whole. And it's that which is beyond mind. It somewhat transcends mind, but it also encompasses mind, the higher aspect of mind. And so the tantrics call this the soul, the light of the soul. The light of the soul is waves of beauty and bliss, also known as Shri, S-R-I. And the idea that lies behind tantric philosophy is that our reality is these pulsating waves of beauty and bliss. And the more we practice, the more we get out of the intellect of mind, which again is in that hamster loop of just repetitive thinking. And we put mind into the background, and instead we put that prana, the energy, the life force, which is really in its most tangible sense governed by our breath, or we can access it through our breath. We bring that forward, and that quiets mind, and that empowers us with something new, something else, something more tangible that we can work with. And for some listening, you might think, oh my gosh, Brooke, you're so esoteric. I have no idea what you're talking about. And other people might be like, yeah, I've tapped into that before, and I have had no language for that. Or I kind of understand what you're talking about. Tell me more. So I'll try to meet all your thoughts. For those of you who are like, I don't really know what you're talking about, I'll try to give it to you like this. One of the teachings in ancient tantric and yogic classical tantra, classical yogic literature called the Hatha Yoga Pradipika talks about how the goal of yoga is really to make us lighter, make us lighter as in brighter, but also lighter as in less dense. And so if you think about it, when you eat a really heavy meal, you didn't digest it very well, the next morning you wake up super groggy, super heavy, kind of lethargic, you're grumpy, you just feel off, right? Then the negative thoughts that come as a result of the body feeling unhappy will be in that hamster wheel of patterning of like, oh, I snapped at my partner, or I had no motivation to do my creative work that I needed to do, or I just fell into the blues of my, I'm about to start my period, so all of this like blech, and you feel heavy. There's no light feeling to that, right? So that's just one example. If we were to have a self-care practice now and recognize, all right, I ate badly, I ate too late, or it was too much and I couldn't digest it, I woke up feeling funky. What can I do about it? So you can actually, in your home practice, then you can tend to whatever it is that you just did that day before, so you feel lighter and brighter and less dense. That heaviness is a density, and the density is perpetuating negative thoughts and perpetuating old habits and perpetuating the same kind of disconnect from that power that is that source within you. And so you can get on the mat, or you can get on your cushion, and you can start doing twists. Twists help to integrate whatever it is that you've digested physically, spiritually, mentally. You can start to do forward folds. This helps to release, bring a downward flowing movement to that, which again, whatever you've digested that then becomes waste matter, you want to release that. And you can do practices that, as you are in your asana, tending to the body, you start to feel things begin to integrate a little bit more. You start to feel a little better, and you start to notice that the mind is becoming a little more at ease, more relaxed, maybe even more peaceful. The quality that comes forward is a lightening. There's this more like a light sense of being. Now, this is you coming from a really bad place or a heavy, dense place, not feeling that great, into feeling, all right, I can manage, and I can feel, actually might feel a little bit better. And then there are more techniques that, again, if you're new to yoga, it might not make sense to you, but for those of you who've been practicing for a while, you can add in Uddiyana Bandha, Agni, Sara, these techniques that wash and flush the belly, so that you're stimulating more and more prana, more energy, more blood, more oxygen flow in the belly, so that you can digest that food. You can digest the old negative emotions, those negative thoughts, all of it gets digested. And the result is you feel lighter. You are less dense. So that's my example for someone who's like, what were you talking about, Brooke? I can't really put that into a practical means for myself, but hopefully that helped you. Now, if you were to take a healthy person who has not just eaten a really big meal and slept all wrong and woke up super grumpy and feeling off, and, all of us do this, like we all have our days. But someone who maybe is already feeling kind of light and empowered, and they do a practice that they want to also just get lighter and clearer, then they can do similar practices, meet themselves where they're at that time, do a wise sequencing, which I'll talk about this in a moment. And that wise sequencing is dedicated to making them more light, more free, more of a clear mind, positive thoughts, and tapping into what is deeper than the thoughts, or again, what is transcended from negative thoughts. And so this is done through that secret tool that we have, which is prana. And prana is energy. Energy is carried by our breath. So in tantric classical yoga, we actually lead our asana with breath. Breath is the guiding force, moving in and out of the poses. Breath is the guiding force that's collecting the mind to then bring the mind into a meditative place for you to then move beyond and into the more brilliant light of the soul, and this kind of higher reality and all-knowing place within you, the sharper thoughts, the more intuitive mind. And so this is what the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, that text, is talking about, is no matter who we are, what stage we're at in our yogic journey or spiritual journey, and again, you don't even have to do asana. I'm speaking to people who like asana, but if it's whatever you do, and that practice that you're doing makes you lighter, more freer, less dense, what happens is you start to tap into a higher frequency of prana that is universal. It's this kind of network of energy that is that which is creating us, creating the world, making life pulse. It's vital life force energy. And so the more we can tap into that, that's the power that Tantra is talking about too. And we can get there as we have refined our practices more and more. We can start to tap into these powers. And again, this can sound a little bit like, what is she talking about? Like, it sounds very magical, which I love. It is very magical. But truly, if you can quiet your mind and you can start to unleash the dormant capacity within you. So we know that we only are working with about 10% of our mental capacity, right? So imagine if you can do these asana practices, pranayama practices, meditative practices that are making you lighter and lighter and lighter, and you are piercing into those places that are these pockets of potential within you, you're going to awaken those forces. And those forces, when they awake, make you stronger, more capable, more empowered, more courageous, more free, more connected. And that's my goal in trying to give you a window in these webinars, is we all have this within us. I have a huge hope and belief in our human race. I feel that a lot of people are asleep, and that sleepiness is just due to the fact that there's a lack of education, that we are not able to function as highly as we could, just because there's the information that needs to be circulating out there is not getting circulated. And so I live in a little tiny peanut-sized town called Grass Valley, California. And again, like I shared with you, I'm on a saffron farm right now, which is really exciting. And so give thanks for technology, because I think it's really important that we start to spread the tools that work so that people can start to take these tools and apply them in a way that is useful for them. So to move on, I wanted to give you a couple of examples. And again, just to recap from last week, I really believe that doing some kind of training, some kind of immersion that gives you the skills to cultivate a home practice is where it's at. Because we can definitely be going to all of the different classes and, taking workshops here and there and YouTube videos here and there and piecemeal it together, and you'll feel good afterwards, but it's not going to wake you up in this way that I'm talking about. It's not going to empower you with the skills that you need to meet the really big challenges that we're facing today with climate crisis and, all of the pandemics of fear and, the epidemics of viruses and things like that. So let's get some skills. Let's get some tools. So one of my favorite topics that I will try to give a little bit of an example and a practical application for you today is called wise sequencing. And so when you take, for example, a yoga teacher training, or we'll just stay there with a yoga teacher training, most often what you're learning is the proper alignment of a practice. They might go a little bit into how to sequence a practice based on risk factors and safety measures, and then counter postures. So you'll typically want to have the postures that warm your body up, that are starting a little more mild, not as strong, not as deep in the stretch, to then build you up into what is called an apex pose. And that apex pose is like the shebang, it's the one that is bringing you deeply into whatever it is you're doing. Maybe you're doing a deep twist and it's an arm balanced twist. So you have this strength that you need to apply, and you need to be open and flexible so you don't hurt your body. So the preparation to get you to that apex pose should be wisely sequenced for the musculoskeletal system, right? And then to bring your energy back down, you need a proper counter poses, and also this guidance into shavasana. From that apex pose, the perfect unwinding, the balancing, the working of the muscles so that you don't leave twisted, you leave symmetrical, the back is nice and strong so you don't throw out your sacrum or you don't throw out your shoulder girdle, and you come back down into that resting pose. A lot of times people skip the resting pose, and I would love to say that this is actually the worst thing you can do in a yoga practice. If you have done any asana, anything more than like 5 minutes, please always do a shavasana. That's the integration. That's your body is doing the work for you. You get out of the way, check out for a minute, just rest and be in your breath and receive what it is that you've just done. If you don't, and you just run off to your job or to whatever the next thing is, you're actually perpetuating the parasympathetic nervous system's fight or flight kind of movement, and not giving your body the ability to integrate, to relax, and to restore. So strong case, always do shavasana. And then I would make a strong case too of, if you can, also always do a little meditation, or pranayama, a little meditation afterwards. So the yoga trainings that are out there today largely have that as their focus, and I think that it's really beautiful when they're done. When they're done well, oh my goodness, like so many of us have poor postures, the forward head position from being on the computer so much, or all quirked for being on your cell phones. Or if you say have a history of being a ballerina, or being pregnant, or however, just poor posturing, your feet go out to the sides instead of toes facing forward. We have all of these postural issues that cause us pain, that then affects the mind, that we self-medicate with food, with whatever it is we're doing, and we're perpetuating the imbalance and keeping ourselves dense, right? So the difference between Tantra Hatha yoga and classical yoga is that the tantrics, yes, learning your alignment is great in a posture, but that's not the key focus. The key tool, and I'll say the secret to what Tantra brings is, again, this idea of prana. And prana is that essence or presence of the life force energy that rides on the waves of our breath. And so it's breath as the tool. Breath is free, it's accessible, and it's freaking powerful when you know what to do with it. And if you can work with your breath in your posturing, you're actually getting that chance to become less dense. And the more you tap in and tune in, you collect the mind so that the mind is no longer scattered all over the place in these hamster wheel loops of negativity, but you're quieting down those old habitual thoughts. And the mind higher mind starts to wake up, right? That dormant energy starts to spark and illumine new neural pathways, where then you tap into this a deeper force, which is source consciousness, source creation, whatever word you want to put to it, or words. And so when I run a couple of teacher trainings, well, I run a full 500-hour teacher training, and when we start with the 200-hour part of it, we're actually learning how to sequence postures in groupings called families. So forward folds, back bends, twists, inversions, laterals, and extensions. And I'd love to give you just a few examples to hopefully you can take home here, these little techniques. So for example, if we were to want to cultivate a home practice for someone, say ourselves, that beyond the physical body of posturing, there's an emotional quality of a lot of fear, a lot of stress, a lot of overwhelm. Maybe the adrenals are burned out because we're strong coffee drinkers or black tea drinkers, chai drinkers. I'm a chai person. And that the adrenal burnout is creating fatigue. It's creating, dysmenorrhea, really painful menstruation, a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of like mood swings, because there's so much depletion there that when your vitality comes in, it's just, sometimes it's good and then you grab onto it, but maybe you use it too much and then you go back. So there's a lot of like a pendulum swing of mood, and the fear is so there, and the anxiety and the worry is so there. I know so many people can relate to this, right? Well, one of the practices that I would suggest to therapeutically and intelligently guide the body and the mind back into balance would be centered around forward folds in asana. And this is the reason why. So a forward fold can be any posture that brings your torso to your thighs or femur bones to your torso. So you can think about that lying on your bed. You can bring your knees into your chest. That's a forward fold. You can bring one knee into your chest and extend the other leg straight. You're getting a nice stretch with the one leg, but the knee into the chest. That's still a forward fold, right? You can stand up and slide the hands down the legs and forward fold down to your feet, bending your knees if your hamstrings are really tight. That's a forward fold. That's the typical forward fold that we think about, right? You can even sit with the legs straight out in front of you, or one knee bent with one leg straight out in front of you, and fold over that extended leg. That's another obvious forward fold. But we don't think about too is you can be in what's called warrior 3, standing on one leg really powerfully with the back leg straight out, torso is parallel to the floor. That's a forward fold, because again, your chest is coming to your femur bone is coming to the chest. Now, the therapeutic benefits musculoskeletally and physiologically of forward folds practices are that you are stimulating the vagus nerve, which helps to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system to turn on. And this is the governing force of you being able to rest, digest, and recuperate, regenerate, reclaim yourself. So physiologically, that's what's happening. You are moving the body in a way that is supporting your body's ability to relax. And that relaxation is going to alleviate some of that fear, alleviate the worry, start to diminish that overwhelm. Because energetically, what's happening? So you're folding down and you're folding inwards. So what happens is the attention of the mind and the breath also moves inwards and downwards. So if your mind has been all over the place in this scattered hamster wheel of stress and mood swings and all up here in the mind, and it's spinning you, you know that feeling, and it's so disassociating. You kind of leave your body, you kind of check out. You are literally bringing your energy back in and down in a forward fold, where you're coming back home into yourself, you're taking care of yourself, and this is a real strong way to make yourself relax. When you're relaxed, you feel more whole, you feel more capable. Your body systems can work more optimally to be able to replenish and regenerate at a cellular level. Your immune system gets stronger so you can meet the challenges both physically and psychically of the day, right? The other thing that happens when you're working with a forward fold, and this is really key as a tantric and where I'm trying to lean into the secret being prana, right, is that when you do a forward fold, you're lengthening your breath. It helps you exhale longer, because as you compress the diaphragm, as you compress your abdomen into that fold, the diaphragm presses up and all of the metabolic waste and all of the airflow from the lungs is released. And so we know that I think it's 90%-ish of our waste matter is actually released through our exhalation. And when we're not exhaling fully, we're holding onto those toxins. And so when we hold onto those toxins, that big fat burrito that we ate and that mood and all of those things, we can't get out of it. It's so hard to get out of it, right? So this is yoga asana to meet and support the mind, to meet and support your deeper physiology that you feel you don't have any control over, but you really do, so that you can be more capable in your time and in your day. So when you exhale longer, you are getting rid of the waste matter. You're clearing out the plate so that the toxins aren't in the body and that the mind can be more of a blank canvas. And then that power, that source of grace, of wisdom, of higher knowing, of love can start to come in. So you give yourself that, and the worry and the doubt and the fear and the anxiety and the overwhelm, again, are all diminished naturally. Another thing about forward folds is, and how they support the longer exhalation, is you can even do longer exhalations and then a pause at the bottom of the exhalation. And that pause is like this emptying or this dumping of thoughts that brings you more into a very still mind. And that's a powerful tool too, because where prana flows, mind goes. Where mind goes, prana flows. So when our breath stops, it's enabling our mind to also get still. Now, we can't stop the breath unless we have built up the breath in a way that we're not getting anxious when we stop the breath. Because sometimes when we stop the breath, we're like, our mind goes into fear waves. And again, that's the antithesis of what we're wanting. So you, just like I was sharing with the gradation of strengthen and stretching the postures to an apex pose and then coming back down into shavasana, you would do your same thing with the breath. You would build your ability to exhale through your asana practice. And then maybe every now and then just pause at the bottom and see where the mind goes. See if you can quiet and still the mind. Maybe you bring it down to the feet if you need to be more grounded. Maybe you bring it down to your adrenals if you need to feel replenished here. Maybe you bring it into the belly for more integration of thought and of experience. And then the more you do that, the more you can strengthen your ability to be in that silence, in that stillness, so that at the end of the practice, maybe you've built that through your whole asana. You go into shavasana, which is the resting pose. You rest, and you're just watching the waves of breath, and then you're allowing at the bottom of the exhalation a pause. And in that pause, you feel everything melt even more, and you feel the mind grow even more still. And what starts to emerge is this like deep sense of nourishment, this deep sense of replenishment or peace. And this might not be the first time you practice that this happens in this way. If you're seriously depleted or out of balance, it might be like the third, the fourth, the fifth, But the more you practice in this way, meeting you where your needs are, then again, when you're in that shavasana, you start to tap into that wellspring, which is soul, which is source, which is prana shakti. It's awakened, enlivened energy. Now, if you add a meditation to that, if you add a mantra to that, if you add what's called a kriya, which is a visualization within meditation, you are strengthening and potentizing what it is your goal is. So this is the gift of wise sequencing. And in the tantric modality, we have so many tools to be able to bring to the plate that can help us on the mission, on that goal of we want to be empowered, we want to be confident, we want to be free from our negative thoughts. We want to be not so dense, we want to be light, and we want to be able to tap into the wellspring of knowledge and source wisdom that will help us meet the challenges of today. So lastly, I'll give you one more example, which is a wise sequence based around twists. So twists and forward folds go really well together. I could have talked about back bends and laterals, but I'm just going to go into twists for today. And the twists are really helpful. Twists is anything that you begin the twist actually from your belly. So you'll exhale, the belly draws in, and then you twist from there. So you're not twisting from your shoulders. You're not twisting from your waist. You're actually, the origin begins at the belly. And these are very compatible to the forward folds because, again, as you are twisting, the belly draws inwards. You're compressing the belly, which compresses the diaphragm, which again moves the diaphragm upwards. The waste matter from the lungs is able to be released, and it supports your exhalation. So twists and forward folds in one practice actually go really well together. Now, a case study or the type of person or maybe your mood of the day, when would you need a twist practice? This could be when, again, you haven't been able to digest something. So maybe it's a really horrible breakup that you still can't get over, or you've had an experience that it just ruffled your feathers and you're unable to be clear, to be able to move in a manner that you feel is safe or whole, or like you're ready for it. You're hesitant. There's no willpower. There's a lack of ease, a lack of confidence, a lack of esteem around what it is that you're trying to do. And it could be as a result of, again, just too much information or too much confusion, or you didn't digest that burrito right, or again, you're dealing with a strong and heavy emotion and it hasn't been settled within you. So all of these things block us from movement forward. Another thing that can be, or another time that twists can be helpful, is when our egos are too big, when we feel we're the almighty shit and we're not taking into account that humility is actually a good thing, right? So when we do twists, we're actually balancing our digestive fire. We're balancing our vital life force energy that truly governs most of the vital organs in our entire body. Our torso is where mostly everything is housed, right? Aside from our reproductive system, and it's our liver, gallbladder, spleen, pancreas, stomach, even the adrenals and the kidneys are affected a little bit back here with the twists. So when we twist, you can think about it as wringing out. When we're looking at it from the musculoskeletal view and not just the asana view, we're wringing out the body of the old toxins, the old waste matter, the memory banks that can keep us limited in thought or in that hamster wheel of looping, keeping us dense. So those twists on a physical level will help us be lighter, more clear, more vibrant in our tissues. They're also clearing out the spinal column, which is really important in building prana. Actually, our prana wants to move into the spine. That's the goal of the yogi, is truly to get prana into the spinal column. And that's where, when you see people who glow, who have that aura and they look like they have an angel halo, or they're just radiant all out, they have prana in their spine and it's exuding all outwards, right? When more and more we have prana in our spine, the more we become unstoppable, meaning we are completely aligned with and in tune with our power, the power of grace, the power of divinity, and no one can take that from us. This is the term that I've been using a lot lately, infrangible. The more we have this power built and replenished deep in our spinal column and also in our belly as balanced fire, the more we are in tune with our true nature. We are in tune with how we connect with nature, the world, and others, but authentically as ourselves, because we know our energy, right? And that also enables us to be humble and coming from a confident and courageous place, but that's not egoic, not power over, but power with, right? More unification and connectivity. So twists are more spiritual of all of the postures, because they are doing these really miraculous jobs of helping to strengthen our digestive system, helping to bring more blood flow and elasticity to our vital organs of the torso, which is necessary for us to have optimal body physiology as well as clear mind. But on a deeper esoteric level, they're helping us to move energy into the spine and to clear and lengthen the spinal column so that more and more prana can get in there. So when I use twists for people and even for myself, again, they are really a go-to for me because we're constantly needing to support our body's physiology in just digesting our food, getting more and more prana out of our food so that we feel replenished and nourished. But they also help, like the forward folds, to release waste matter. And one of the biggest ways that they do this when we're looking at wise sequencing is that when you're adding on the quality of breath, they help us to exhale longer. Now, if you were to add on a technique where you're twisting, and this can be just in a simple seated twist, right? And you twist the body this way, it can be, many of you probably know triangle pose, right? If a regular triangle pose is considered more of a lateral stretch, but if you were to do what's called Parivriti Trikonasana, which is a rotated triangle, that's a very deep twist around the belly. There are lots of different twists, postures, lying on the back, super simple, knees into the chest, lowering knees to one side and lowering the knees to the other side, doing that dynamically. That'll strengthen what I'm talking about here at the belly, flush the organs and tissues, bring healthy blood flow to these areas, calm the mind, right? So when I do these practices, it's very much like the forward folds when there's been a lot of overwhelm or there's been some, undigested emotions, but they can also really help us relieve anger and frustration. So that's a big emotion going around these days. And I truly believe that when we can sequence our practices in a way that we are working with breath and this intelligence of knowing what it is we're doing and really checking in, knowing where our emotions are at, we can work with the twists for helping to relieve the anger, clear out the anger. Twists also help to clear out confusion and doubt, because again, everything that I've already just shared, but it's strengthening the Manipura chakra. This is our power, our sense of self in relation to what it is that we're doing in the world. And when we feel small and tiny, and again, we're in these moods that we don't feel like we can really connect to others in an authentic way in our own knowing, our esteem becomes less, our confidence and courage becomes less. We don't have the will and the power that we need to do the things that we want to be doing. And so this is all disempowering. And these webinars are all about how we can meet the challenges of today. My answer is prana for empowerment, wise sequencing, and home practices for empowering you to be able to bring your authentic self, your skills and tools forward. And so the twists, they will help to empower you. They'll help to strengthen in a very small way. If you just started with a simple home practice, doing these twists like I was sharing with you, you can Google and find out what twists actually work for you. Lengthening that exhalation, feeling the prana moving into the spine, feeling the digestive system start to balance pranically as well as physiologically, then you start to feel a little more in tune with yourself and a little more balanced. And maybe you'll start to cultivate this idea of, if I do this again, I might even get stronger at what it is that I'm aiming for. And so I'm going to do this again tomorrow. So you do it again tomorrow. And then the next day you do it again. And you're like, I'm starting to feel better and better and better. And your willpower, your desire to actually do the work in the morning, meaning do your home practice before you go to work and really take that time to dedicate to yourself, your growth, and even our human collective conscious evolution, right? You're doing your part. What happens is your willpower starts to grow, your power starts to grow, your confidence, esteem, and all those things then also start to grow. This is Shakti. This is power. And lastly, I'll just say, if you listen to that intuition and your intuition is saying, yeah, I ate that big fat bean burrito, or I had that horrible breakup and my mood is like this, and I know I need to do these twists or forward folds because that's exactly what my body needs, and you don't do it. And then you just get a little bit worse that day. And then the next day you feel like, oh, a little more of like a slug, and you're like, oh, I can't just muster the energy. Or you put everything else in front of you doing what you need for you. And so what happens to that confidence, courage, and esteem and that willpower, it diminishes. When we stop listening to the intuitive guidance that is telling us, do this thing to help us become strong, and it's free, it's accessible. You know, when you know what it is you need to do, you've done a good training, bring that shit home, bring it to your carving of self-care for you. When you do it, you're empowered. When you don't do it, you disempower yourself. The more you don't do it, the more your willpower actually weakens. The more you do it, the more your willpower actually strengthens. The terminology for this in Sanskrit is Shakti and Ashakti. Ashakti is disempowerment. So we are so used to being stuck in our habits that perpetuate our disempowerment. And then we're like, why is our life falling apart? Or why isn't this thing working? Or why am I not accomplishing that which I want to accomplish it? Why is our world going to shit? You know, like all of these things, like we have it within us to wake up that dormant energy, to have the capacity that we need as humans to start to connect to one another with our brilliant minds and our intuitive guidance, our connection to source, and our potential for creative everything. We are so creative, right? And we can get there with a home practice. I truly believe in this. So I hope that I made this clear. It was a bit of a challenging topic for me to tackle, and yet I'm really passionate about it. And I mean, challenging in the sense of a webinar format without me just bringing you through a practice to help you embody it. But I would love to share that I do have, I was like, what can I give you guys from this? I do have a video series called Blueprints of Tantra, and it is breaking down these 6 families of asana, the contraindications and risks, the benefits and therapeutics, and then a full practice including pranayama and meditation that guide you through the whole thing. So you get the embodied taste of what it is I'm talking about. And having this as a video is great because then you're able to, again, do this at home, experience it, and know what it is I'm talking about. Especially if you've already been through a training, then you have like, oh my gosh, these tools. They're like, now I can make this a more potent practice, and my yoga more potent with what it is that I'm doing for myself or in sharing with others. And so, you know, some people are like, yay, to videos. Other people are like, man, I'd rather be live. And that's my dilemma, is I live in a very small town. I haven't yet been able to figure out technology to do live trainings via online. I don't even know if I want to, because I really love the ability to work with people one-on-one and, you know, and just being in my home studio with us. So this is what I could offer you. I have a Blueprints of Tantra. If you are local, if you're watching this and you're like, I think I really want to get into understanding more about wise sequencing, more about prana, the life force energy that floods through us all, and how the tantrics use this prana as really like the force. You know, the force is not, it's really not a mysterious thing. When we understand what it is that we're working with, and with our breath, you start to feel, ooh, and this is working. And if I apply this to that, I absolutely get this goal, right? It's A plus B equals C. You just need to learn the tools. You just need to get the skills, and then the results are there. We can't change the world. We can't be empowered in the ways that we want to be empowered if we don't have the skills and the education to back it up. So I have Blueprints of Tantra. I have Roots of Tantra and Prana Pranayama in Tantra, my in-person trainings. If you happen to be in Northern California, you can come join me. Otherwise, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more webinars. And if you're like, I really loved what you were talking about, Brooke, but I wasn't clear about this, or can you elaborate more on this? Please just hit us up with an email. You can email Christine, my wonderful assistant, at officeguru@thewildtemple.com. And she'll send them to me, or you can send them to me, Brooke, with an E, @thewildtemple.com. And I can just collect those and make another webinar here soon. All right, I talked a lot today. Thank you so much for listening, coming from this beautiful saffron farm in Northern California. I hope you have a lovely, nourishing day, and I'll love to hear from you soon. All right, be well.